Hello, everyone, and welcome to our discussion on a critical, yet often debated, aspect of global energy security: Strategic Petroleum Reserves, or SPRs. These massive stockpiles of crude oil are designed to be a nation's emergency lifeline during severe oil supply disruptions. But their management is far from simple. It's a complex dance of economics, geopolitics, and domestic policy. First, let's talk about the ultimate authority. In many countries, like the United States, the power to release oil from the SPR rests firmly with the executive branch, typically the president. This gives the president significant power to intervene in energy markets, a power that can be used for both economic and political ends. While often subject to statutory conditions, the interpretation and timing of these releases remain largely discretionary. This leads us to a core political debate. What's the real motivation for an SPR release? While often framed as responses to genuine supply disruptions, critics frequently argue that releases are timed to influence domestic gasoline prices before elections, or to project an image of active economic management, rather than solely for emergency purposes. For instance, drawdowns during periods of high gasoline prices, even without a clear supply shock, often face intense scrutiny. This can lead to accusations of politicizing a critical national security asset. The act of drawing down the SPR necessarily depletes its inventory, raising legitimate concerns about future preparedness. This brings us to the controversies surrounding depletion and replenishment. Deciding when and how to refill the reserve becomes a political hot potato. Should oil be purchased when prices are low, even if it means foregoing immediate revenue from sales? Or should purchases be deferred to avoid upward pressure on prices? The timing of replenishment is a constant balancing act between economic prudence and market impact. Replenishing the SPR requires significant financial resources, which can easily become a point of contention in heated budget debates. It's a major investment that often competes with other national priorities. Adding another layer of complexity, in some countries, legislatures may mandate SPR sales for budgetary reasons, perhaps to offset spending in other areas, even when not strictly necessary for emergency purposes. This further complicates the strategic management of the reserve, pushing it beyond its intended role as a purely emergency tool. As the world increasingly shifts towards renewable energy sources and away from fossil fuels, the long-term relevance and purpose of SPRs are being debated. This is a nascent but growing political discussion. If a country's reliance on imported oil decreases due to the energy transition, does it need as large a reserve? This is a fundamental question that challenges the very scale and necessity of existing SPRs. Some argue that continued investment in large oil reserves could become a quote-unquote stranded asset in a net zero future. The political question then becomes, are we maintaining a strategic asset or simply delaying the inevitable write-down of an outdated infrastructure? Should strategic reserves diversify to include other energy forms, such as critical minerals for batteries or even strategic reserves of electricity? This proactive approach considers how SPRs can remain relevant in a rapidly changing energy landscape. The timing and scale of SPR announcements can have a significant, albeit often temporary, impact on global oil prices. This creates a political tightrope for governments. Critics might accuse governments of attempting to manipulate oil markets for political gain, especially if releases coincide with domestic political cycles. This can erode public trust and undermine the perceived neutrality of SPR management. Governments aim to strike a delicate balance between providing transparency about their reserve policies and maintaining an element of surprise for maximum market impact during a crisis. Too much transparency can reduce the effectiveness of a release, while too little can lead to speculation and distrust. The future of strategic petroleum reserves is dynamic, influenced by evolving energy landscapes and geopolitical realities. With the global push towards decarbonization, the role of SPRs is undeniably evolving. Some countries are considering strategic reserves for alternative fuels like biofuels or hydrogen, while debates exist whether to reduce SPR capacity as fossil fuel demand declines or repurpose facilities for energy storage. Technological integration, including advances in monitoring and smart release mechanisms, will further shape SPR utility. Emerging economies like China and India are building their own SPRs, fundamentally changing global energy security dynamics. And in an increasingly volatile geopolitical climate, with ongoing tensions in regions like the Middle East, SPRs are likely to remain relevant for decades to come, serving as a critical buffer against unforeseen disruptions. In conclusion, strategic petroleum reserves are dynamic instruments of energy security with thoughtful economic and political implications. They provide countries with a critical barrier against supply shocks, stabilizing markets, and safeguarding national interests. However, as we've explored, SPRs are also deeply embedded in political calculations, from domestic policymaking to complex international diplomacy. Their future will continue to be shaped by global energy transitions, geopolitical realities, and the ongoing political debates that surround their vital role.